Welcome to Sustainability Made Easy, the podcast that gives practical sustainability tips for your SME business. With me, your host, Jade Pluck. Welcome Andrew Cameron to the podcast today. He is founder of Intelligent Facility Solutions, and they provide energy efficient hand dryers and sustainable washroom solutions, which ultimately reduce costs and carbon footprints. Also, Andrew is the founder of the 10-Minute Tidy. You might have seen it on LinkedIn, and we're going to talk about this too and see how you can get involved in that in your local area. So hi, Andrew. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Jade. How are you doing?
Yes, fine, thank you. Fine. It's great to have you here today, and we're talking hand dryers today. And actually, someone once said to me about washrooms, it's the first thing you see when you enter a building, and the last thing you see as you leave. So they're an incredibly important part of a building. Give us a little bit of background. You've been in business 10 years. Has being sustainable always been on your agenda?
Yeah, just coming up to 10 years now, actually. Yeah. I have to admit, the reason why we got into the business originally is because the products that we do weren't particularly well explained to the market. So there were products that were £50, there were products that were £800, and nobody was really explaining the value in between. So we created kind of a witch directory almost of energy efficient hand dryers and produced videos so people could see how they performed. All very exciting stuff, but it kind of carved out a little niche for us. So people really trusted the advice we were giving because all the products were tested for lifespan. And it's actually over the years that we've come across the kind of negative PR from the paper towel industry that I started to really embrace the subject of sustainability and kind of understand it in a lot more depth. Really, it was kind of necessary to defend my business at first. But as with everything, once you kind of get into a subject and start to kind of appreciate the nuances and all the complex facets of it, you go delve further and further, and I guess over time I've kind of developed a bit more expertise in the area and become very passionate about the subject, and I've changed a lot of things in my own life, and I guess from being like a lot of the population kind of walking blindly through things to this realization we'll start doing an awful lot more than we are.
That's it. And I think what kind of comes through about the hand dryer, and actually I'm having conversations with my clients about, what have they got in their staff toilets, in their customer toilets. It's such a small thing to change, an easy thing to change, but it has a massive impact. And I know I've kind of shared the stats that the hand dryer has, the impact that it has over paper towels. But I just wondered if you had that information to hand, because I think if people actually see the difference that it makes to their carbon footprint, they would actually consider, perhaps opting for a different solution.
Absolutely. Well, rather than trusting me, who obviously sells hand dryers, there's a book called How Bad Are Bananas, which is by Mike Berners-Lee. It's a fantastic book for pretty much looking up anything to do with carbon footprinting. He's pretty much the UK's expert, and he explains everything in such a simple way. And one of the areas he looks at, among hundreds of different areas, so every aspect of kind of the individual and workplace carbon footprints in there to some extent. And even he freely admits it's never an exact science. But he did an assessment of the products to dry your hands, and an energy efficient hand dryer came out at 2 grams of carbon per dry. A standard hand dryer 11 grams of carbon, and a paper towel at 10 grams per towel. So you typically use 2.5 perhaps towels. Obviously one thing is to try and use less if you are in a washroom with paper towels. Try and use one, but it doesn't always do the job. So you're looking at about 25 grams for paper towels and about 2 for an energy efficient dryer. That's actually come down to nearer 1 because the grid mix has changed since he did his assessment. We have more renewable energy, and actually that was based on a Dyson Airblade, and we have dryers that have half the energy consumption as that now. So.
Gosh, I mean, that is such a difference. And you're right. I mean, paper towels, not only are you using 2.5, they're then, it's if the company, if they get recycled, if they don't, there's a knock-on effect of those being used. Like you say, if they're being used, then you can definitely do things in the interim by using less. But really interesting. And I'll post a link to that book actually that you mentioned. That sounds like a good read for.
And another quick plug would be, if you want to understand this subject very quickly, do the course by the Carbon Literacy Project and read that book. Those are two really simple things that won't take a huge amount of your time, won't cost you loads of money, and the amount of basic understanding you'll get from that and kind of realization of what you need to be doing is great. And education's where it all has to start.
Indeed, it's companies taking this on and educating their teams so that they can become kind of passionate, like we are, like the sustainability professionals are. That everyone can have that passion inside them for various reasons. So, no, great, thank you.
I just quickly wanted to mention, going back to hand dryers, just because it's a very good case in point for looking at other products. The reason why a hand dryer is such a positive environmental product is, once you've produced that product, obviously there's embedded carbon in producing it. It creates zero waste. So there's so many things that we think, oh, well, that's an environmental product because it's made of this or it's made of that. We're kind of missing the point a little bit with that stuff. It has to start with, do we actually need that product in the first place? Can we eliminate that product altogether? Because as soon as you create something, it doesn't matter what it is, there's going to be some emissions involved in manufacturing that product, transporting it, disposing of it. And paper towels are a really good example. You start with logging trees that require loads of water input, chemicals. You then have to take that to a processing facility to turn it into pulp. You then have to take that to a converting facility, all being transported by big diesel trucks. Huge energy inputs required for the processing side of that. You've then got to transport it to further distribution places, and particularly with Scandinavian softwood, that's coming from all over the Europe. So that's coming from traveling quite a distance, and all by road. And a lot of people go, well, that must be better than the product coming from China. But it depends how it travels here. A diesel truck emissions compared with the emissions of sea freight or barge, for example, it can travel far further like that. So you've really got to just not make assumptions too much and kind of inspect how a product is produced and how it gets to you. And then obviously you've got to dispose of that product. Now, there's a real distinction between wood used for single-use products and wood used for sustainable building. Wood is fantastic if the carbon embedded in it can remain embedded. So if it remains a solid piece of wood that is used in construction, for example, or in a playground, fabulous. That is a great use of wood. And we almost need kind of an amnesty on wood right now, where we go, all those kind of products we don't actually need, or we think we're doing the right thing by making them out of wood rather than plastic. Let's just back up a little bit and look at the whole picture here and go, right, well, let's not cut down those trees because they're 25 years old and it's going to take us another 25 years to replace them, and start thinking about our product selection and what we're actually using that wood for. Sorry, I've kind of hijacked that there, but I think it's quite an important point that I needed to get in, that the hand dryers kind of illustrate, because you do have embedded carbon in a hand dryer. We offset that carbon in a number of our products, which I know is a bit of a dirty word to some people, but it's better than not doing it. So they're carbon neutral products, and we look to repair and keep those products alive for as long as possible.
Yeah.
And that's really important, because that's kind of the biggest part of the emissions of a hand dryer. But generally, after about 1,000 uses, 2,000 uses of most hand dryers versus paper towel, that becomes the equal point of the dispenser and the production of the paper towels. And then you're saving 95% emissions for then onwards. And when you consider that a lot of them have over 1 million uses of a life cycle, that really mounts up over time. So I hope that kind of gives it a little bit more colour and detail.
It does, and I think it's kind of relates it to, when you're thinking about it, you're actually thinking about other products too. I mean, that point that you made about, wood and, a tree taking, 25 years, it can be a lot more to grow. I guess you've got to think about that product. Are you going to have it for 25 years? If you are, then great, get it. If it's not going to last that long and it's a throwaway product, just don't. Is there a need to buy it? I think us as consumers, we need to start thinking differently and thinking along the lines of, like you say, do we need it? Can we opt for another alternative? And I think that's where you come in as a specialist in this field, because you can help educate people around the choices that they make, because there's a lot of information out there that people get confused about. And I guess the reason why I have this podcast going is to just help people just understand and make choices that are good choices, good for the planet. So no, it's really, really, really informative.
It's so hard for consumers, because one thing, for example, that we see with the paper towel industry is they try to associate their product with loads of sustainability messaging. And granted, they might be trying to improve their sustainability, but fundamentally the product is not sustainable. No. But they kind of cloud that with this idea of sustainability.
Yeah.
And that really muddies the issue for a lot of consumers. One thing that Mike Berners-Lee says, it's 1.7% of our overall carbon footprint is on paper towels and toilet paper. That doesn't sound like a lot, so you can paint that as well. It's only a small part of your footprint, so don't worry about it. But actually, that's a really small change, like you say, which is fairly significant when you consider that you aviation and food will form a massive part of that. That's an easy change you can make. Yeah. I do want to be really clear that these aren't the things to start with. There are much bigger gains that, again, Mike Berners-Lee book is kind of really helps you navigate that. And it's about identifying, I think, those things that you can change without it ruining your life and everyone else's life around you.
Yeah, definitely.
And the easy wins. And that then leads to further change.
It does. It's kind of, it's changing your mindset. We're doing it at home. I said to the family, right, we're going to have one day of meat with no meat, because the impact of that is quite significant. Not really significant, but it's a change that, I'm starting to get my children to understand, the impact that this has, on the planet. So no, it's definitely mindset. It's definitely getting in the habit of thinking in a different way, and small things, small changes can definitely help that. So
that's it. Yeah. The family go, that was all right, actually, Mum, wasn't it? We can do that a couple of other nights, and soon it becomes a bigger change.
Exactly. Oh well, gosh, so much useful information there. And I guess maybe we'll kind of move on then, because you so much information about the hand dryers. You yourself in the company are starting on your own sustainability journey. Sorry. Can you share a few things that you've been doing there, perhaps, that might help? Obviously, you've mentioned the book, you've mentioned the Carbon Literacy Project, which is great. Anything else that you're kind of doing there that can kind of inspire?
Well, I think we kind of skirted around this issue for ages, and we didn't have absolute clarity over what we were supposed to be doing. And I think a lot of businesses find themselves in that position. We want to do something, but we don't know what. So we did initiatives like banning single-use plastics with consultation with the staff to be brought into the office. So that actually got national press, and we got vilified by the kind of right-wing press for this kind of woke notion of banning something like that in the office. But actually it created a lot of debate within the office, and it created a lot of discussion, and that's where it really has to start. everything has to start with kind of trying to get people on board and not telling them how to behave, which is probably where, you know, the kind of right-wing press picked us up as if we were telling them. Everything was done in consultation. That's really important. You know, what can we do together as a team?
Yeah.
And that's kind of graduated to, we work with Climate Partner now to do like a complete look at our Scope 3 emissions. And what became really, really apparent was how easy it is to get a nice badge saying you're climate neutral without doing an awful lot. The really important piece was the measurement, because we got down to reasonably granular detail. But again, it's really important that people don't get too hooked up. This isn't an exact science. You have to start with a consistent way of measuring. And that may change, and your assumptions may change over time as to how you're measuring. But start somewhere and get an overall picture. Because the first thing we did was go, oh my God, look at what we air freighted last year. You know, how can we claim to be a sustainable business when we air freighted stock? It was pandemic related, but still, I looked at it and just said, never again. Because out of our total carbon emissions, we don't technically need to include that in our carbon emissions, because it's external from produced in this country, which is absolute nonsense. But when I looked at our overall carbon footprint of all the products we produce, you know, to sell to our customers, again, that doesn't have to be included because it wasn't in our factory. Right. But ethically, we're including that. So, you know, our total carbon emissions were about 15 to 20 tons for the internal UK, and then 1,850 from our products externally. So this opened my eyes to, gosh, how many companies are just quietly getting themselves a nice carbon neutral label without actually really taking responsibility. And it's actually what the government does as well. They go, oh, that's produced in China, or that's produced in Spain or the US. That's their problem. Yeah. So that surely just encourages us not to manufacture in this country, doesn't it? Which is, I know, kind of sounds intuitive to solving the problem.
That's it. Even the supply chain, even the supply chain, which, is so, even as a small company, it's hard to measure. But even if you start having, like you say, conversations with suppliers and just seeing how things can be improved, it is still going to have that effect on what you're doing. If your suppliers are perhaps looking at things in a different way, perhaps using or starting to think about using different products for packaging, for example, it definitely takes, a forward-thinking company and staff at that company to kind of start having those conversations, I think.
Yeah, and what became really apparent is, we can look at the materials in our products, and that's tricky because it's a lot more expensive to look at kind of fire retardant bioplastics being used in our products. What the huge change is to buy things that last, but also we've got to close that loop. So we've started trying to make sure that customers know there's a value in their product at the end of life. So it's all about communicating after they've purchased that will have value. So be retained as a customer, and that has real value to us as well, because we can keep that dialogue going with customers which may have just bought from us in a transactional way in the past. We now want to know when that product fails, so that we can do something about it into the longer term. We can create a revenue. They can actually get better value from us. Nothing has to be produced.
No.
So it's a great kind of win-win situation. Yeah. That's what business has always been about to me, is creating win-win scenarios, and the environment is absolutely like that.
Yeah. It sounds like you're kind of thinking along the lines of the circular economy, where, everything stays in use. If something's broken, you fix it, or it gets reused and put back in the cycle, rather than it just going, oh, it's not working anymore, we'll just bin it and get another one. So
yeah. So we're putting lifetime guarantees on things, and 20-year warranties without any additional payments on products. So just encouraging people to buy stuff that lasts.
Yeah, no, that sounds like great initiatives. And I think, like you say, building that relationship with your clients, that will no end help, people wanting to buy from you, people, trusting that your products are going to last. When you when you see that warranty on things, I think for me as a consumer, you know it's gonna you know it's built to last if it's got a 20-year warranty on it. So it's really good, really like honest advice, because you're right, there's so many things out there where you can just get a badge for doing something, you being carbon neutral, and actually when you look into it, that what are they saying, and actually a company like yourself actually really taking the time to look at your products and to look at the benefits. I think it's fantastic. So yeah.
So just to bring that into the light, you kind of 1,850 tons of carbon produced by our total business, including our products, and only 15 on Scope 3 UK emissions. So all our people travelling to work by bike is probably one of the biggest changes we can make. There's lots of other benefits to that, health and well-being, but that would improve our footprint by just over a ton of the distance, which isn't much. So really looking at that product side of thing is massive when you think about it and making things last. That's where anyone that produces, that's their real kind of hotspot that they need to look at.
Yeah, no, that's really good, and I guess that all the team are they're fully behind you, which is great. And I think you made a really valid point there at the start, is actually helping the team understand what you're doing, why you're doing it, and getting them on board because they want to get on board is also a key part in that. So great, gosh, so many useful insights and tips about the hand dryers as well. I think people are going to really take away a lot from this. And I guess just to kind of finish up with this 10-minute tidy that you the initiative that you launched. I can't think when it was. It was quite a few months ago now, wasn't it? Back in the summer.
A couple of months ago, and just to plug another book, it's called Known by Mark Schaefer. And something I've always struggled with in life is doing things consistently. A lot of entrepreneurs I think might relate to this, that they tend to bounce around with lots of ideas, and just sticking with one thing is sometimes the hardest thing. And I've always had this thing about litter. I can't understand the mentality why people do it. I can actually more so now, having looked into the subject. It is about how people feel about their communities. It's how they feel about their own prospects, how they feel just generally about society and how engaged they are. So it's much more than just litter. And it's something very tangible. It doesn't matter kind of which side of the political spectrum, how you feel about environmental issues. It seems to bring everyone together because no one likes dirty, littered streets. But there is so many environmental angles to it, because collecting litter can regather waste that can be recycled. So there's big emission savings from savings on virgin plastics and things, obviously getting into our ecosystems. But it's really nice for getting people out and just having conversations. You don't tend to really look at each other that much when you're doing it. You're just chatting away and you're kind of in your own space. So it's kind of quite a mindful thing to do. So we've had some really kind of positive work conversations while we've been doing it. But we just wanted to do it consistently and put it behind this hashtag. And I guess kind of like the ice bucket challenge kind of thing is nominate 3 people to do it, and keep spreading it. And I can't say it's taken off in any way like that as yet, but it's a start, and all these things are about momentum and consistency. And, we're now having conversations with kind of big businesses around Sheffield and in our area about one of our other commitments. So we've joined 1% for the Planet, which is a movement set up by Patagonia to give 1% of our turnover to environmental charities, and we're working with Keep Britain Tidy. And so our contribution is 50% financial and 50% employee time spent doing environmental initiatives. So every Friday afternoon, we take half the staff out, starts actually tomorrow. And we are working with the council's provider to clean up specific areas of the city. And that's in a really measurable, tangible way where all the waste will be measured in, will be weighed in. The streets will be graded consistently on the quality of the the street from a litter perspective. And we want to engage businesses within the area to come and join us. So we're going to do a couple of dummy runs ourselves, and then it's about turning it into a mass movement where people are sending along a few members of staff. We've all been trained so we can lead groups and just scale that up and scale it up and really make the local business community proud of what we're doing. But the 10-minute tidy was the kind of way into that, like a very easy thing that everyone can do and spread round. And it's kind of raising the awareness of it. And so, if you want to do a litter pick, contact your local council and they will send you all the litter pickers for free. So there's no cost. They'll send you all the stuff because they want people to help them.
Yeah.
They just don't have the resource to do it. And just post under 10-minute tidy. We're happy to create your own literature around it. If you want to lead it in your own area, your marketing materials, get in touch and we'll put your logo, your brand in. You spread it around your business connections, and get some conversations going. And that's kind of a nice chance to talk to people about what else they're doing, when you come together.
That's it. I think like you said, it's a real nice community. I know when we've done it around our local area, neighbours actually kind of come out and you just have a little chat with you as you're kind of picking up litter. And I think it's such a nice community spirit thing to do, whether you're doing it for your own personal want to do it, or like you say, businesses kind of getting involved for that bigger picture with their staff going out and linking it to kind of corporate social responsibility and the time that they spend. There's massive benefits, and like you say, the health and well-being of being outside and getting a bit of fresh air and having a chat does wonders. Like so many good things.
Everyone says that was really rewarding when they see a patch being cleaned up, and they it's something really tangible that you can see. And a lot of this stuff environmentally, you cannot see it, and so it's hard to stay engaged, but this is a really good reminder. So it kind of underpins lots of other things. And it's a good way of starting off your organisation thinking about the subject. And plus, there's loads happening in the community, but businesses don't really do enough. It's often like a once-a-year initiative or something, that goes on the CSR page. Embed it in what you do. You're not going to lose productivity.
No, you'll gain productivity because, like you said, you're having work conversations while you're out and about. Ideas, things that you might be doing in the business. It's not going to be wasted time at all. But you'll be more productive. Definitely.
One thing I didn't mention, was just on the bamboo toilet paper. I think you wanted a quick assessment of the.
I did. I was mindful of time, and I didn't want to go over too much. But I love that. Bamboo is an amazing product because it grows so quickly, doesn't it? And that's why. Yes, go on. Tell us. I completely forgot to go back to it.
Yeah, no, you're fine. It's so again from How Bad Are Bananas, Mike Berners-Lee says that recycled paper, toilet paper per roll, 450 grams carbon. Virgin, so from virgin trees, 730 grams, and the bamboo measurement that we had commissioned independently was 114 grams of bamboo. The reason for the reduction, because a lot of people actually go, "Oh, that it's coming from China, though. It can't be better." It's harvested right next to a main river, so it basically gets harvested and produced very close to a river. Uses hydropower to power the factory, and then it's transported up to the main shipping containers from there. It's unbleached, it's undyed, and there's the high levels of sequestering from the bamboo of carbon, but also the growth in that time. And it's all FSC regulated, so it's not bamboo that's causing any biodiversity issues by taking over other crops or anything. So again, the only transport by diesel is a small distance in China, and then once it hits the UK shore, which is why transport emissions are actually a lot lower than you'd think. But the assumptions are normally wrong about that. Most people go, it's come from China, it must be bad.
Yeah, like you say, it's how it gets here. If it comes by sea or if that compared to air, for example, if it's coming by sea freight, then better. Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, if that was coming from the middle of China and it had to be travel on a diesel truck across China, you've got a completely different picture. So it's not always one thing is good and one thing is bad. You have to ask the questions. You have to investigate a little bit more.
Yeah. No, I think that's a good point. I think that's when you start having those conversations with your supply chain, finding out a bit more detail, and then you can make informed choices. So yeah, gosh, another product that you can easily swap out that has an impact. Not a big impact, but it's a change for the better. So definitely, hand dryers and toilet paper. Everyone can make those changes. Put them on your list for 2022, I'd say. Lovely. Well, thank you, Andrew. Really lovely chatting to you today, and I'll look forward to watching your journey as you progress as a company. So, thank you.
Yeah, you too. All the best, Jade.
If you like this podcast, then do subscribe to my channel or sign up to my newsletter if you'd like to get an email notification when the next episode goes live.